The first time Mara heard the crying, it was coming from the wall. Not from the neighbor's apartment, not from the hallway, from inside the drywall, right behind the framed photo of her wedding day. She pressed her ear against the paint, holding her breath. And that's when she heard a man's voice whisper her husband's name, a name no one in their life should have known. "My name is Silas. I'm not a detective in the traditional sense. I'm a cartographer of what people hide. I don't chase criminals. I map betrayals. If you enjoy dark mysteries, psychological thrillers, and true crime-style investigations, subscribe to the Betrayal Map. Because some secrets aren't buried in the ground, they're built into the walls." Don't nom. Mara and Ethan Caldwell lived in a quiet neighborhood outside Seattle. One of those places designed to feel safe. Tree-lined streets, minimal noise, clean sidewalks, perfect lawns. A place where neighbors wave at each other like they've never once needed to call the police. Mara was a compliance analyst for a medical company. Her job was to look for small mistakes, tiny inconsistencies that could become massive legal disasters. It made her excellent at one thing, noticing patterns other people ignored. Ethan was a project manager for a construction firm, reliable, calm, mildly boring in the way people trusted. He wasn't a romantic man, but he was steady. And for Mara, steadiness felt like safety. Because Mara's first marriage had ended in a betrayal so humiliating she couldn't say it out loud without feeling sick. Her ex had been living a second life. Another phone, another name, another woman. She'd found out by accident, a receipt in a jacket pocket, and it taught Mara a lesson she never forgot. When someone is hiding a life, they don't hide it with lies. They hide it with routines. So when Mara met Ethan, she chose him for his predictability. No mystery, no chaos, no sharp edges, just peace. And for 3 years, that's exactly what she had. Until they bought the house. It wasn't supposed to be permanent, just an upgrade, a larger place, a step toward the future. Ethan found it on a listing site and sent it to Mara with one sentence. "This feels like us." A 2-story home built in the late 90s. A little outdated but clean. Neutral colors, big master bedroom, the kind of house you buy when you think you're done surviving and ready to start living. They moved in on a rainy Monday. By Thursday, Mara had heard the crying. It started at night, always between 0 and 3 a.m. At first, Mara thought it was plumbing or the old heating system. But then she noticed something that pulled her wide awake. The crying wasn't random. It came in the same rhythm. 3 soft sobs, a pause, then one longer, broken inhale, as if someone was trying not to be heard. Mara got out of bed and followed the sound through the hallway. Ethan slept like a stone, breathing evenly. The sound was louder downstairs. She walked past the living room, past the kitchen, toward the hallway that led to the laundry room. And the crying stopped. Silence. Complete silence. She stood there for a full minute, waiting. Nothing. Then, as she turned to go back upstairs, a whisper. So soft, she almost convinced herself she imagined it. But she heard it. A man's voice. And he said, "Ethan, you promised." Mara froze. Her stomach tightened, because no one should have been inside their house, and no one should have been saying her husband's name in the dark. The next morning, Mara didn't mention the crying. Not yet. Instead, she did what she always did when something felt off. She looked for proof. In the laundry room, she examined the walls. Nothing obvious. No vents, no crawl space door, no loose panels. Then she noticed something small, a thin line of fresh paint near the baseboard, like someone had patched a crack. But the paint didn't match the rest of the wall. It was a slightly different shade of white. Subtle, careful, intentional, That's when Mara did something she hadn't done since her first marriage ended. She checked Ethan's phone. Not because she wanted to, because her instincts were screaming, and what she found wasn't a message, it was a calendar reminder. Every Thursday, 2:30 a.m., labeled only. Check. No explanation, no location, just check. Mara's hands went cold, because last night had been Thursday, and at 2:30 a.m. she'd heard someone crying inside the wall. Before we go further, I want to ask you something. If you heard someone crying inside your wall at 2:30 in the morning, and then found a secret reminder on your spouse's phone for that exact time, what would you do? Would you confront them? Or would you stay quiet and investigate? Tell me in the comments, because Mara chose the second option, and it nearly destroyed her. Mara waited. She watched Ethan through the day like she was studying a stranger wearing her husband's face. He was normal. He made coffee. He kissed her forehead. He complained about traffic. No visible guilt. No nervousness. That scared her more than anger would have. That night, she pretended to fall asleep early. At 2:10 a.m., she cracked her eyes open. Ethan was awake. Not moving, but awake. Staring at the ceiling like he was listening. At 2:25, he slipped out of bed and walked downstairs without turning on a light. Mara's heart pounded. She waited 10 seconds and followed. He stood in the laundry hallway, facing the wall with the mismatched paint. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out something metallic. A key. A small, old-fashioned key. He pressed it against the wall like he knew where something hidden was. And the wall clicked. A soft, mechanical click. Mara's breath caught, because walls don't click, not unless there's something inside them. Ethan opened a panel she had never seen. It was hidden behind the baseboard trim, a rectangle cut cleanly into the drywall. Inside was a narrow cavity. Ethan slid his hand inside and pulled out a small object wrapped in cloth. Then he stood there for a moment, not moving, like he was bracing himself, and Mara heard it again, the crying. But now it wasn't muffled. It was coming from inside the cavity, a faint recording, a woman's sobs. 3 short sobs, a pause, then the long, broken inhale. Ethan stared at the object in his hand like it was poisoning him. Then he whispered, "I'm sorry." He put it back inside the wall, locked the panel, returned upstairs, and lay beside Mara as if none of it happened. Mara didn't move. She didn't breathe. And she understood something terrifying. Her husband wasn't cheating. He was hiding something worse. If you're still here, make sure you're subscribed. Because what Mara finds inside that wall isn't just evidence of betrayal. It's the beginning of a map that leads to a life Ethan never told her about. And once you see the full picture, you'll understand why the house was the perfect place to hide it. The next day, Mara took off work. She waited until Ethan left. Then she went straight to the laundry room. Her hands trembled as she knelt by the baseboard. She found the seam. She pressed her nails into it and pried. The panel popped open with the soft click she'd heard. Inside was the cloth-wrapped object. Mara pulled it out, unwrapped it, and her mouth went dry. It was a child's baby monitor. Old, battery-powered, modified. On the back, the label had been scratched away, but the serial number remained. Mara turned it on. The screen flickered. Then it played the crying. Again, and again, and again. But as she listened closer, she realized something new. Behind the sobbing, there was another sound, a man speaking, his voice low, controlled, like he was giving instructions. She rewound it, turned the volume up, and caught 3 words. "Stay quiet, Lila." Mara's blood ran cold. Lila. Not her name. Not anyone she knew. So who was Lila? And why was Ethan keeping her voice inside their wall? Mara did what a compliance analyst does best. She traced the serial number. It wasn't easy. The model was discontinued. But after 2 hours of digging through old forums and resale databases, she found a match. The monitor had been sold in a private second-hand transaction 3 years ago. The same month Mara and Ethan met, and it had been shipped from a town called Everett, 30 minutes from their house. Mara drove there that afternoon, not to confront Ethan, to understand what she was living inside. Everett was quieter than Seattle, older, less polished. She searched the address linked to the transaction. It led her to a storage facility. Mara parked and sat in her car for 5 minutes, trying to breathe. Then she walked inside. The receptionist looked up. "Can I help you?" Mara forced a smile. "I'm looking for a unit registered under Ethan Caldwell." The receptionist typed, paused, then frowned. "We don't have an Ethan Caldwell." Mara's pulse spiked. "Are you sure?" The receptionist turned the screen toward her. "We have an Evan Caldwell." Mara stared. Evan. 1 letter off. Close enough to be a mistake, or close enough to be intentional. The unit had been active for 4 years, and the payment method listed wasn't a credit card. It was cash. Monthly. In person. Mara signed a visitor form with shaking hands, and the receptionist handed her a key. Unit 214. Mara walked down the corridor of metal doors. 214. She unlocked it, pulled the door up, and what she saw inside made her knees go weak. There were children's toys, small shoes, a dusty stroller, a stack of drawings taped to the wall, stick figures, a house, a man and a woman, and in one drawing, written in shaky child handwriting, "Daddy Evan." Mara's stomach dropped, because Ethan didn't have children. At least, that's what he told her. Mara stood in that storage unit for a long time. Then she found the file box. Inside were documents, old mail, medical forms, and a marriage certificate. Her eyes scanned the names. Evan Caldwell and Lila Hart. The date was 6 years ago. Mara's hands shook so badly she almost dropped the paper. Because Ethan wasn't Ethan, not fully. He had another name, another life, and another woman. But this wasn't an affair. This was a vanished family. Mara found one more thing inside the box. A police report, missing person. Lila Hart, age 28. Reported missing 4 years ago, last seen leaving her home at night. And at the bottom of the report, one line that turned Mara's skin to ice. Primary person of interest, Evan Caldwell. Mara's mouth went dry. Because if Ethan was Evan, then the man sleeping beside her wasn't just hiding a secret, he was hiding a disappearance. Mara drove home in silence. Rain streaked across her windshield like the city was trying to blur reality. She pulled into the driveway, and suddenly she understood something she hadn't before. Ethan didn't choose that house because it felt like them. He chose it because it was a container, a safe place. A place with walls thick enough to hide sound and secrets. She walked inside. Everything looked normal. The living room, the kitchen, the framed wedding photo. But now it felt staged, like a set, a performance built on top of something rotten. Mara went upstairs. Ethan wasn't home yet. She stood in their bedroom, and for the first time, she looked at her marriage like it was evidence. Then her phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. "Running late. Don't wait up." Mara stared at the message and realized the worst part wasn't that Ethan lied. The worst part was that he lied well. Then she heard a sound downstairs. A click. The same click. From the laundry hallway, Mara's blood turned to ice because Ethan wasn't supposed to be home. She grabbed her phone, walked to the top of the stairs, and saw him, standing in the hallway, facing the wall, holding the key. He turned slowly and smiled. A smile Mara had never seen before. Not warm, not reassuring. A smile that said, "You know now." Ethan's voice was calm. Too calm. "You weren't supposed to go in there," he said. Mara couldn't speak. Her throat felt locked. Ethan took one step closer. "I tried to keep this clean," he whispered. "I tried to be better." Mara forced one word out. "Lila." At the name, Ethan's smile vanished. His eyes hardened. "You heard her." Mara stepped back. "Where is she?" Ethan looked toward the wall, and for a second, Mara saw something in his expression. Not guilt, not shame, fear. "She's still here," he said quietly. Mara's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "Still here." Ethan raised the key, tapped the wall once, and the crying began again. But this time, it wasn't a recording. It was live. A woman's sobs, muffled, desperate, coming from inside the house, from somewhere beneath them. Mara's heart slammed against her ribs. Ethan whispered, "You wanted the truth." Then he stepped aside and pointed toward the basement door. "Go see what you married." If you enjoy stories that unravel like a map, layer by layer, subscribe to the Betrayal Map. Because betrayal isn't always a text message. Sometimes it's a house. Sometimes it's a name. And sometimes it's a door you never thought to open. Mara stood at the basement door. Her hand hovered over the knob. Behind her, Ethan waited in silence. And from below, the crying stopped, replaced by one sound, a voice, weak but clear. A woman whispering, "Mara." Mara's blood turned to ice, because she had never told anyone her name. And that meant only one thing. She wasn't walking into a secret. She was walking into a trap. And Ethan had brought her here on purpose. End.